Chapter 11, Part 2. Endelgian, the magical city in the astral realm. The elders gather for a special emergency meeting after receiving disturbing reports from several provists scouting for new talent in the human realm. Elder Gwerin stands before the assembly of her peers, deeply troubled by what she has heard. As you have probably already learned, Provost Cargill and Dalton have sensed the presence of numerous revenant creatures that have strayed into the world of the living. More revenants than have ever stepped foot into the human realm have gathered in the American city of Brighton, Florida. Just as with the cities of Rockland, Toticahatchee, and Clavemont, the presence of the Sakari-possessed teenager Jake Stewart is at work here. Murmurs rise up from the assembly. After Yamura's emergence into the world through Stewart, it was decided to keep the boy under close observation. Before the events of Toticahatchee, those tasked with monitoring Stewart were killed by another Sakari, Yamura's sister Inyana. Our negligence has led to the deaths of thousands of innocent people. Had we destroyed Stewart when we had the chance, we could have avoided countless tragedies. We can no longer sit by and watch while Stewart runs wild. His power has swollen to a level that absolutely cannot be ignored. If he is not stopped, all of Brighton will fall to his evil. What do you propose? That we kill him? Elder Meliodas Pola asks. While it is frowned upon, such actions are not unheard of in our long history. Even now, many of the tasks that you likely find as unsavory are being carried out with expert finesse by members of the Blackwings, under the guidance of Master Forgeron. I believe that if we hand this mission over to them, it would be in everyone's best interests, Elder Kadri Giaconda says. In Toticahatchee, it was determined that Stewart was battling against Inyana, not working with her. Are we certain that his interference did not prevent further loss of life? Elder Pola asks. Could he not, even now, be fighting the revenants that are amassing in the city? Even if that was so, the collateral damage wrought in Stewart's path cannot be tolerated any longer. His public lack of regard for any secrecy has led to the creation of a government agency that now investigates paranormal incidents. How long will it be before his carelessness brings guns and death to the walls of our own city? We must act on what is best for the continued existence and solidarity of Endelgian, Elder Gwerin says. What of the revenants? Elder Danira Leroy asks. It cannot be a coincidence that they and Stewart are in the same city once again. It is my belief that the revenants have been drawn to the strong dark energy generated by Stewart. Even now, that boy continues his attack on the city, spreading death and destruction wherever he goes. I have assigned scryers to monitor the situation in Brighton, and their reports are grave, Elder Gwerin says. I agree that the experience of the Blackwings is needed to further assess the situation, Elder Ernesto Urias says. It should be at the discretion of Master Forgeron whether the Stewart boy needs terminated or apprehended. Danny catches Master Forgeron outside of the gates to the barracks of the Knights of Solomon after learning of his newest mission to the human world. The Blackwings gather at the teleportation circle that will be used to send them to Brighton, Florida. Is it true? Danny asks, fear in her voice. Are you going to kill Jake? Forgeron is hesitant to answer. We do not know for certain it will come to that. It's still possible that we will be going to lend assistance to Jake against a greater foe. Take me with you, she demands. Jake is my responsibility. If it weren't for me, he'd never have become united with the spirit of Yamura. Apprentice Livingston, you are not my pupil. I cannot continue to take you along on my missions without consequences. Do you know how many rules would be broken without first petitioning Master Deota for your assistance? Come on, Danny shouts, agitated. You wouldn't have caught Scrimauer without me. I'm more useful than any of your provosts. Fordron grins at the teen's bolstered arrogance. It's becoming increasingly easier to manipulate the girl's actions. That very well may be. However, I still cannot bring you along. Master, Jake needs me, she begs. No one else will give him a chance. He's already guilty in everyone's eyes. Fordron smiles. But not in yours. Danny nods. He isn't a bad person. Everything that we put him through would have broken any other person's will. But instead, he uses that dark power to fight against evil. You see your own redemption in his success. If someone as cursed as Jake can make a positive difference, so can someone like me. I can assure you that we will do our best to give him a fair chance to explain his actions, and we will gauge our response appropriately. If possible, we will bring him back here alive and place him in a cell, not unlike Scrimauer, until we can learn what, if anything, can be done to help him. And if nothing can be done? Danny asks cautiously. The thought of Jake being killed for something out of his control that she initially caused aches Danny's very soul. Under the instructions of her former teacher, Elian Schaefer, she cast the spells that both located the chosen vessel of Yumura and readied it by increasing the darkness within the teen's heart. Every negative emotion experienced by Jake was amplified, causing him to lash out violently against loved ones and cut him off from his closest emotional support. If it had not been for Danny, everyone that Yumura killed inside of Jake's body would still be alive. The boy will be placed within a sleep-like state, where he will not suffer, but neither will he be able to harm anyone else until it's determined what can be done about him. Danny is aghast at the extreme actions proposed. You'll put him in a coma? Is there really no way to remove Yumura's spirit from Jake's body? The ritual to bind their spirits was an ancient Yazatan blood magic, long forbidden to our use. I do not even know if any record of the spell still exists in our archives. But has anyone even looked? Danny asks. I promise, we will not harm Jake if at all possible until I have had the library thoroughly searched. Thank you, Danny says, sighing with some relief. If I can get Master Deoda to agree, will you take me with you then? You do not have much time, Fordron replies. We'll be leaving as soon as preparations are complete. Danny runs off, hoping to return before the Blackwings can depart. Let's see how clever young Livingston really is, Fordron smiles. If she lives up to my expectations, she will lie about asking Deoda for his permission and return almost straight away. Several minutes later, Danny proves the wily Master's suspicions true. Master Fordron grins as he leads Danny towards the teleportation circle to prep with the other Blackwings for their mission. Danny notices that she previously worked with two of the Blackwings assigned to this team on the mission to destroy the Revenants in Rockland. Hey, Danny shouts, waving to Provost Jonathan Butler and Dane Sinnoh as she jogs up to them. Hey, Danny, Sinnoh responds. You're coming with us on this one? Danny nods. I know Jake. I have the best chance at stopping him without violence. Well, after the way you fought that Revenant and how Master Fordron doted on you after taking down Scrimauer, we'll support you however you want to tackle this one, Sinnoh says. Butler agrees. If you say no violence, then we'll use our strongest binding magic on him. No one's breaking out of the binding spells we've been working on. Fordron approaches. Prince Livingston, I would like you to be introduced to the rest of the team. He brings her over to a young, mousy-looking woman with glasses. This is Provost Marcella Lutea. She will be acting in a support healing capacity on this mission. He then directs her to a fierce Chinese woman who is busy casting enchantments on her sword. This is Provost Saya Yim. She will be our primary combat mage alongside Master Reginald King. He points over to a mountain of a man on the other side of the transportation circle. Fordron then points to a thin and frail-looking man with glasses and stringy hair. This is Master Cyrus Bennett. He uses dream magic. We will be using him in an attempt to non-lethally subdue Jake Stewart. He points to the remaining two mages. Over there are Provost Adibin Zuberi and Alcine Porter. They are more specialized combat mages and will help provide backup should your friend prove too challenging for our initial attempts. Thank you for not planning to head straight in with the full firepower and kill Jake on the spot, Danny says. I have to try to reach him. Fordron nods. I understand you wanting to save your friend, but you also have to be prepared for a scenario where Jake Stewart must be eliminated in order to keep our team safe. I won't let it come to that. I won't give up on Jake. Not after all I've put him through. At some point you must let go of that guilt. Not everything that has happened to him is your fault. This is unhealthy. Maybe. But I'm not ready yet. I need this guilt to motivate me. I can't let Jake further push himself down a path he can't return from. Fordron smiles. You have a kind heart, and are a good friend. I pray that doesn't get you killed. Searching for Hui, Jake scans the city for any instances of Sakari energy. To his surprise, there are faint traces of the Sakari in multiple locations. He passes a small laundromat, walks through the large windows, his erratic energy shattering the glass before any of it ever touches his flesh. The people inside scream in terror and scatter for the exits, leaving a single, overweight Hispanic man in the back. Who the fuck are you, kid? The man asks. Jake growls, approaching the man with hatred in his eyes. You stink of Hui. Never heard of him. Now get lost, kid, the man says, making sure to flash the silver of the gun tucked into his waistband. Jake lunges, grabbing the man by the throat and slamming his back against a row of dryers. Look, I ditched that scene a while ago, the man says, fumbling for his gun but dropping it to the floor. A friend of mine set a couple of us up with an opportunity to make some bank. All we had to do was run some surveillance for those cult wackos. All I did was follow a girl around for a couple of days and report back what I saw. Where she went, who she talked to, that kind of stuff. Completely harmless, man. Without another word, Jake releases the man's throat, before slamming his palm against the man's face and driving the back of his head into the door of a dryer. The man slumps to the floor, leaving a red streak on the glass as he slides down. Jake walks away towards the next closest source of Sakari energy. Brighton Medical Care, a private clinic secretly owned and operated by the doctor as a way to mask his activities in the city. With the hospital in ruins and too close to the destruction caused by Jake and Hui, the doctor has fled with his remaining staff to his secret cover clinic. The doctor paces back and forth nervously. Candy Stripe has never seen the man she respects so much this distraught. Ever since they fled from Hui's sanctuary, the doctor has not stopped pacing. We had nothing to do with what Hui's people did, Candy Stripe says. There's nothing forcing us to maintain that alliance. No matter which of them wins, we're in danger, the doctor says. I underestimated the forces attacking the hospital. I assumed they would be defeated by Bulldog and his team in our absence. But I still haven't heard from any of our GX-enhanced operatives. If Bulldog thought it was too dangerous to return, He would not lead the enemy back here, Candy Stripe says. We can't just assume he's been killed. The doctor looks over at the two captives, taken by the whitecoats he left behind at the hospital. What are we supposed to do with these hostages? They do not even have the GX parasite. What worth are they to us? We had the rude boy under our control. How did we end up trading him for these two? It was Silva, Candy Stripe says with disdain. It had to be him. Why else is he gone? I knew that coward was not to be trusted. That may be, the doctor says, deep in thought. If our attackers were truly a government operation, Silva likely crawled to them for amnesty. If that scoundrel gives over all of mine and Khan's secrets to the government, we're done for. We'll be hunted like dogs. Let them try, Candy Stripe growls. I'll kill anyone they send. If they figure out how to manufacture their own GX soldiers with Silva's help, their resources are near limitless. No one can stand up to the army they would surely create. Sounds like you're on borrowed time, Mr. E laughs, tied to a chair in one of the side exam rooms. Shut up, the doctor growls. I always heard how calm and collected you were. Seems like something has you shaken, Mr. E laughs. Stop antagonizing him, Tyrell whispers. They really don't have much reason for keeping us alive. Let's not remind them of that. If I'm going to be killed, I'd rather speak my mind than stay quiet and die like a coward. I'm not a coward, but I know not when to poke the bear, Tyrell argues. Not like we have anything better to do, Mr. E says. Two whitecoats come to the doctor with news from the outside. Hui has gained his human host. The doctor nods. So it is he that has emerged victorious. Not exactly, the whitecoat says. Yamura's vessel has gone out of control. His strength far exceeds the Sakari Hui. Much of the west end has been completely destroyed. Yamura's vessel? Candy Stripe asks, surprised. Not Yamura himself? It's not Sakari energy radiating from Yamura's vessel. All we could sense from him was dark human energy. Dark? The doctor asks. I thought he was supposed to be the avenging hero against Hui. The boy's power is out of control. The murder of that girl has sent him into an emotional collapse, the whitecoat says. Candy Stripe recalls the tortures Claire endured and balls her fist tightly. He killed her. I knew it was going to happen. That doesn't mean I have to be happy about it. Hui deserves everything that happens to him. As long as we stay out of it, let that boy remove Hui from this world. It will work out better for us if Hui is gone anyways. Boy? What boy? Mr. E asks. It isn't who you think, the doctor says. The vessel of Yamura. His name is Jake Stewart. I know who he is. He's the one who took down Rapture and the crew back in Clavemont, Mr. E says. He also slit Khan's throat. Good on him for taking out another Sakari. If Hui was even half as bad as Inyana, we'd be facing another Totikahachi-level event here. That Sakari is far more of use to me than you, the doctor growls. Unless you wish to start contracting our mercenaries to take on Khan's facilities, I would keep quiet. So what reason do you have for keeping us alive, then? Mr. E asks. It will be much easier to kill your friends by luring them to a place of my choosing, rather than expend the resources trying to track them down. Once I can get them off my back, I can return to business as usual. Mr. E chuckles. No offense, but you don't have the staff needed to be able to fend off peril or storm, let alone them and Virtual together. Your young companion Brian is no longer a threat. We had him under experimentation in the hospital. He was most likely killed in the attack. Mr. E shakes his head. Brian isn't that easy to kill. You're gonna regret not seeing him die firsthand when he comes here and ends you. That kid has no killer instinct, Candy Stripe laughs. He won't be killing anyone. Who do we have available to defend this building when Peril, Storm, and Flex finally arrive? The doctor asks. In addition to myself and the 9 whitecoats that we escaped the hospital with, and the 6 that we extracted with our 2 prisoners, we have 12 staff stationed in this location and the 4 GX-enhanced operatives in charge of security. Do you believe that will be adequate? Candy Stripe hesitates. No, probably not. King Cobra's team is tough, but none of them are as strong as Bulldog. If he really was defeated, 4 operatives weaker than him will not be able to defeat our enemies. Malice? Bulldog growls, entering the room. His team are a bunch of renegades. We can't trust them to anything this important. Welcome back, the doctor says, emotionless. That was rough, Bulldog says with a sigh. I never thought we'd shake them. Shake them? So they're still alive? Bulldog nods. I wasn't able to overcome the combined power of Peril and Storm. What about the other operatives? The doctor asks. You can't be the only one to have survived. Bulldog hesitates. Null and I are the only survivors. Peril and Storm killed everyone else. Incompetence! The doctor screams. How could you not overcome 2 children? They were stronger than we expected, Bulldog says. Khan invested a lot of resources into his Clavemont recruits. Are you implying that I skimped on the resources invested in your team? The doctor growls. No, sir, Bulldog stammers, trying to walk back his statements. I'm just concerned we're not prepared enough to defend this facility. What about Malice team? Do you have a status update on them? The doctor asks Candy Stripe. They were still carrying out an op several hours away. I've not heard back from them since their departure. Damn, the doctor whispers. Malice's team is much better suited to face the likes of Peril and Storm. His team has much more combat experience than any GX-enhanced mercenary unit I have put together. I'll contact Malice and order him to return here immediately. She pauses, sensing several strong energies nearby. I can't believe I didn't notice it before. Notice what? We have company outside. 3 GX-enhanced warriors. No. Wait. There's 4 of them. They're concealing the bulk of their strength. I suspect Flex is among them. 1 is very close. 2 more are farther out together, and the 4th is approaching rapidly. Yeah, about that, Null says nervously. So she might not have been killed in battle like I reported. Morons! The doctor screams, throwing a coffee mug at Null's head. The cup shatters against the nearby wall. Not only did you lead them here, you allowed one of our own to join them. Like we knew she still had a grudge against Khan, Bulldog growls in annoyance at the developments. The conditioning process was supposed to strip those attachments away. Without full access to Khan's training program, a full conditioning process was unattainable. We had to make do with what was available. The doctor growls. I've made a costly miscalculation saving that girl's life. I wouldn't beat myself up too much. Tyrell stands up, revealing his restraints to have been broken. You still have viable options. His voice changes. How? The doctor whispers. I have no records of you possessing enhanced abilities. Tyrell grins. Who exactly do you think I am, boss? Switch? Candy Stripe asks. Switch, is that you? In the borrowed flesh, Switch says with a half bow. Though I'm currently stuck in this body. Mr. E trembles, horrified. Then Tyrell is... Switch nods. Dead as disco, I'm afraid. You idiots never had a clue I'd replaced your pal. I'd planned to keep the charade up long enough to steal the virtual's body. But desperate times and all. The doctor smiles. This is good. We can certainly use this to our advantage. Those trusting fools will never suspect you to be anyone other than their ally. If I can snag the body of the virtual, I can kill his comrades rather easily. Dispose of the old man. We can't have him giving away our secret, the doctor says. Candy Stripe approaches Mr. E, brandishing a fixed-blade combat knife. Nothing personal, Gramps. The building shakes violently as the siege has begun. Forget him, the doctor screams. Go deal with the intruders. Bulldog, Null, assist her. Switch, you stay here with me. You will be our final trump card, should the others fail to contain the situation. Switch nods. Yes, sir. He looks over at Mr. E and puts a finger to his lips. Our secret, okay? Fuck you, Mr. E growls, spitting at the man. Tyrell was 1,000 times more of a man than you are. Switch shrugs. Doesn't matter now, does it? I outsmarted all of you, and I'm the one still breathing. Seems it didn't work out as well for you as you'd hoped. Why keep me alive at all, then? Mr. E asks. You have all the bait you need with Tyrell's likeness. While Switch is my Trojan horse, you will become the great solution to ending the threat your allies pose to my operations. You see, Khan was focused solely on the GX parasite, while I have a great many interests. The failure rate of GX is astronomically high. To mitigate the potential waste of valuable personnel, I instead deal with grafting and genetic modification to supplement those incompatible with the parasite. Why create a near mindless reject when you can have an even more powerful enhanced Sakati soldier? What the hell does that have to do with me? Mr. E growls. The doctor smiles. You will soon see. Switch, please gather all personnel you can find not already aiding Bulldog and Candy Stripe in their defensive efforts. Yes, sir, Switch says obediently, running off. My recent interactions with the Sakari Hui and his followers has not left me empty-handed. I have discovered a whole new avenue of enhancement, with the potential to far outclass GX or Sakari abilities. You're insane, Mr. E growls. They're going to kill you. Maybe, the doctor muses. But that is the allure of my new interests. Death is only another path leading to even more possibilities. Mr. E is now unnerved, wondering what kind of twisted plans the doctor has concocted. When you die, that's it. It's game over. Any plans you would have had are going to have to be carried out by your surviving lackeys. No. Death is not the end, the doctor says ominously. Not if one's will is strong enough. I have seen firsthand the creatures that are born from a soul's refusal to submit to death. These souls only grow stronger, feeding on other like souls and the energy of the living. You really have lost your damn mind. Tell me, do you believe your will to be stronger than mine? The doctor asks, picking up a scalpel from a medical cart nearby. If we were both to die, whose soul would overcome the other? Whose will would force the others to submit? Would your soul overtake mine? Or would your loyalty to your friends trump my desire to live on and continue creating new masterpieces? Masterpieces? You create monsters. The doctor shrugs, setting the scalpel back down. That is all up for personal interpretation. He pictures the revenants prowling underground and imagines not only devising ways to control them, but also harnessing power over death itself in order to create the monstrosities. The doctor's communication device chimes with an alert. What is it? He asks into the radio. This is Malice. My team and I are en route from our last job. The mission was a complete success. We had planned on taking a few days off, but Bulldog called me a few minutes ago and said our assistance was desperately needed. The doctor grins with relief. Bulldog finally did something right. Yes, you are needed at Brighton Medical immediately. We are under attack. Only Bulldog and Null remain of the hospital security forces to defend us. Everyone else has already been defeated. Why Brighton Medical? The hospital is far better equipped to handle an attack. The hospital has already fallen. This is our last stand against our enemies. Damn. Okay, we'll hurry as fast as we can to your location. Try to buy us about 20 or 30 more minutes. Help is on the way. Jake runs down another street, stopping upon two men. An older man with many piercings and tattoos is in the process of selling a bag of powdery white substance to the other when Jake happens upon them. Get lost, freak, the customer shouts, snatching the bag. Nothing to see here. Jake approaches, closing the distance between them in an instant, and backhanding the mouthy drug user into a brick wall before he can even open his mouth to speak again. Here, take it, the dealer shouts, throwing wads of money and illicit substances at Jake's feet. Jake grabs the man by the wrist and rotates his hands, snapping several of the dealer's bones. The dealer drops to his knees, crying in pain and terror, before wetting himself. He begs for his life to be spared. You reek of Sakari. But you're only a human, Jake growls. You're not even tainted with their blood like the assassins. Explain. My supply comes from a guy named Jarzo. He works downtown at the hospital. The hospital, Jake repeats with interest. A faint memory tries to come to the surface, but it's just out of the teen's reach. A lot of weird fellas come and go from that place. Some of them are even monsters. I bet that Sakari you smell is one of them. Monsters, Jake repeats, releasing the man from his grip. What's your freaking deal, man? Are you one of those monsters yourself? Jake holds out a hand, inches from the man's face. I'm just a traveler who's lost his way. Screams briefly fill the alley, but are quickly silenced. Smoke rolls off Jake's palm and from a charred section of the street in front of him. The teen heads for the next closest source of Sakari energy from his location. Flex and Storm approach Peril as he crouches on a rooftop, overlooking a busy downtown area of Brighton. Where have you been? Storm asks. I've been trying to find you all day. Shut up, Peril growls. Someone will hear you. What? Storm whispers, confused. Who'll hear us? I tracked that Bulldog guy down to that office there. Brighton Medical Care? Storm asks. The doctor has several small branches throughout the city he uses to deflect the attention of his activities at the hospital, Flex says. What more do you know? Peril asks, glaring at the young woman. This office isn't as well protected as the hospital. It's a bit harder to defend and has less staffing. Anything else? Flex shakes her head. There isn't anything special about this place by design. The office is supposed to help him blend in. If we tracked him down there, then he's cornered, right? Storm asks. We can stop the doctor here and now. Do you know how crucial that is? It won't change anything, Flex says dismissively. There will always be someone else to pick up the slack. Khan is gone, but have you seen any slowdown in GX-related atrocities? As long as the means to create more monsters like us exists, so will people like Khan and the Doctor. With Khan and the Doctor both out of the picture, Director Rude would be the only remaining obstacle between us and the end of this entire nightmare, Storm says excitedly. That's an awfully big what if, Flex says. I haven't seen her power firsthand, but from everything I've heard, she could just have us all kill each other, or ourselves instantly. She's in a whole nother league. Peril scoffs. Her psychic abilities can't be that much stronger than mine. If you're too frightened, I'll be the one to kill her. Don't underestimate my mother, Brian says from behind, surprising them. Virtual, Storm shouts. How did you get away? I had help from some agents from a government agency called PIA. They're trying to take down the Doctor and Conco, same as us. You should never have been captured in the first place, Peril growls. You were too careless. Good to see you too, kid, Brian laughs, drawing an annoyed grunt from the youth. With you here, we have all the firepower we need to take down this last refuge of the Doctor and his operatives. We can finally end this. Hold on, Flex cautions. The Doctor isn't a fool. He'll be expecting some kind of attack. I'm sure he'll have defenses even I don't know about. How do we know you aren't leading us into a trap? Peril accuses Flex. It's very convenient you joined up with us while your allies were being defeated. I could say the same about you, Flex growls angrily. You were Khan's favorite little attack dog. Then you lose one fight, and suddenly you're one of the good guys? Stop it, both of you, Brian snaps. We're in this together. We take down the Doctor as a team. We're going to have to approach this delicately, Storm says. We can't go in guns blazing. Why is that? Brian asks. Mr. E and Tyrell are being held captive. They got captured at the hospital when we were trying to find you. Damn it! Brian curses, balling his fists. Who cares about them? Peril asks. Killing the Doctor is far more important than saving their worthless lives. Their lives aren't worthless, Brian shouts angrily. They're my friends, and I'm going to do everything I can to rescue them. Peril grunts in agitation, saying no more. What do you propose? Storm asks. I'm going to contact those PIA guys and give them this location. The more eyes we have, the less chance anyone will escape this time around. Brian pulls out the communicator given to him by the agents. Do you want another crack at the Doctor? What? Callahan is surprised to hear from the boy again so soon. You've already located him? I thought you were looking for your friends, then going after Yamura. I found my friends. 2 of them are being held captive in one of the Doctor's independent practices. Seems he's been running out of the town's smaller clinics to keep up his cover. I'll give you the address if you're interested. Hell yeah, we're interested, Lachey shouts. I gotta pay those mothers back for shooting me. Good. Bring any backup you can, Brian says. The Doctor's remaining GX fighters are here too. It's gonna be a brawl. I already sent the monster hunters out on patrol, but I'll reroute them to your location. What about your end? Do you have enough support? Peril and Storm have the building under surveillance, and one of the Doctor's own people defected to our side. We should be able to take the building, but we'll need your team to make sure no one escapes. If we lose the Doctor, he'll go to ground so deep that we'll never find him again. We'll cover the exits once we get there. Send me the address. The PIA agents prepare to move out and finally capture the elusive Doctor. With the Doctor out of the picture, no one else will be able to manufacture enhanced mercenaries to use against innocent civilians and government interests. Brian freezes, sensing the arrival of numerous powerful GX-enhanced fighters. The Doctor's reinforcements have arrived. How many? Storm asks, sensing only a single concentrated mass of strength. 8 to 10, Brian says, tapping his helmet to initiate a bioscan. 3 of them are at least as strong as Bulldog. Is that all? Peril scoffs. Not much of a challenge, then. Don't be overconfident, Storm shouts. Bulldog was able to defeat the Virtual before. He has some real skill. Maligan's team arrives and stands facing the line of Brian, Peril, Storm, and Flex. As team leader, Maligan stands at the front of the group, with his number 2, Morrigan, only a step behind. The other members, Doyle, Glutton, Larson, Inertia, Wingman, and Teevil, await their orders. You must be the kids that caused so much trouble in Clavemont, Maligan says. You really took it to Khan. Heard you even beat the crew and killed Commander Hajir. Are you more of Khan's victims? Flex asks. Or were you actively assisting his evil? She adds, balling her fists. Neither, Maligan laughs. My team and I were freelance mercs, who received a nice power-up from the doctor in exchange for our services. We've only contracted out to Khan a few times, and none of those jobs were in Clavemont. You picked the wrong fight, kids, Morgan says. Dark-haired and in her early 30s, Morgan's specialty is speed and finesse. She is the team's primary stealth assassin. We aren't fresh out of high school rookies like Khan's recruits. We've been doing this for years. Peril acts first, moving towards them, but is intercepted by a large red-haired man and a skinny man with pale skin. The skinny fighter touches Peril's shoulder, while the other man connects with a hard right hook. Peril is sent flying back, crashing into the side of a building. Peril! Storm shouts, moving to help. The GX fighter known as Doyle intercepts him. You can't help him. You have a broken left ankle, Doyle says. Storm stumbles, feeling his ankle buckle. Flex and Brian attack together, leaping over Storm as he falls. The large red-haired man moves into their path, taking their punches. To the side, the GX warrior known as Wingman loans Glutton 5% of his power to boost his defenses. Any attack blocked in this way is reduced to 0 damage. They work well together, Brian says, leaping back in frustration. We don't know their powers, Flex says. We have to be careful. Morgan rushes them, drawing a sword quickly and slashing at both of their midsections in an instant. You kids are in over your heads, she shouts as blood explodes from both Flex and Brian's sides. Damn, Brian coughs, dropping to a knee. These punks aren't anything special, Morgan says. I can take all 4 of them myself. Don't get cocky, Maligan cautions. They were able to kill Hajir, who is stronger than all of us combined. They might have hidden powers we haven't seen them display yet. The skinny fighter who touched Peril's shoulder speaks up. The youngest one can use psychic energy to burst blood vessels and fry nerve endings in an opponent's brain, Larson says. His powers allow him to steal the abilities of anyone he touches, but he can only hold the powers of 3 individuals at a time. Each time he borrows an opponent's powers, the oldest power he holds disappears. Storm stands up, trying not to put pressure on his ankle. You bastards are tough, but we aren't giving up. We will take you down. Deer rolls his eyes. I don't want to hear any of your stupid speeches. You have bronchitis. Storm begins to cough violently, clutching at his throat, which suddenly feels like it's on fire. Doyle is able to use his opponent's cells to inflict any injury on them that he declares, but it cannot be life-threatening or last more than 10 minutes. Peril shakes off his injuries and runs at his opponents enraged. Glutton moves to block, with Wingman boosting him another 5% loan. But Brian tackles him with a forearm to the throat. The boost is not enough to prevent all damage, and Glutton doubles over in pain as Peril drives the fist into his gut. Saliva explodes from Glutton's mouth and his eyes bulge. Bastard! Doyle shouts, turning to see Peril taking out Glutton with a powerful lunge punch. You're paralyzed with pain. You won't be able to do anything. Feel each one of your ribs snapping one by one. Peril freezes, spitting up blood as his ribs break one after another. Glutton regains his composure, striking Peril with a hard blow to the jaw. Brian punches Wingman in the face, knocking him out, and stands back up to face the others. Peril and Storm are already out of the fight. I don't know if I can do this on my own, Brian thinks. Morgan holds her sword out at Brian. This time, I won't cut so shallow. Flex enlarges a fist, hitting Morgan with such force that she disappears into the distance. Looks like it's me and you against the world, Flex says. I'm not alone, Brian thinks with relief. We can do this if we work together. You have a broken back. Doyle is stopped mid-sentence as Peril strikes him in the throat and crushes his windpipe. The GX fighter is unable to speak, gasping for air and clawing at his throat. As Doyle loses consciousness, his activated abilities cease. Brian darts past Doyle, striking Larson with a flying kick to the face. Pivoting, Brian takes out Malice with a roundhouse kick. The GX fighter known as Inertia steps up to face Brian. Nice work, kid, Inertia says, but this is as far as you're advancing in this battle. Brian throws a punch, but Inertia runs at him and causes the blow to bounce off with no effect. Inertia runs over the team, sending him tumbling backwards. Once I start moving, no force on Earth can stop me, Inertia brags. Brian skids to a stop and turns, again trying to hit his opponent. Brian is again sent into the air and bounces off the ground several times. Damn, he coughs. All the force of my punches are being just sent back into me on contact. Malice crawls back to his feet, rubbing his jaw. Kill that kid first, he growls. He's got some dangerous power inside of him. Larson steps up, blood dripping from his lips. He's strong, but he has no special abilities. What? Malice is startled. His power is all raw energy and stamina. I got nothing extra from touching him, Larson explains. Yeah? Well, what about me? Flex shouts, hitting Larson with an enlarged fist. Morgan rushes from out of nowhere, attempting to sever Flex's arm at the wrist. Storm throws both his hands out, flooding Morgan with electrical energy. The woman screams as she is shocked and sent backwards. Glutton quickly intercepts, swallowing Storm's attack until the team drops to a knee exhausted. We aren't getting anywhere like this, Brian says, wiping blood from his lips. The bottom of his helmet is chipped away, exposing his mouth. Energy swirls around Peril as he finally begins to feel closer to his full power. Doyle's abilities have worn off with his unconsciousness, allowing Peril's stamina to build back up. As Peril releases his energy in a single blast towards Malice, Glutton intercepts and swallows the attack. Ooh, Glutton says, belching smoke. Spicy. No way, Brian whispers. He ate his attack? Instead of despair, Peril only becomes angry at the setback and begins to rebuild his energy stores. Your ability cannot be as strong as mine, he screams, releasing another blast directly at Glutton this time. Glutton swallows the attack, barely moving his position. Keep 'em coming, Junior. The energy he intakes has to go somewhere, Brian thinks. He has to be storing it, but he can't do that indefinitely. There must be a limit to the energy he can absorb. Electricity crackles around Glutton's body as he swallows another blast from Peril. Steam escapes his mouth with each breath. That's it, Brian thinks. He's going to have to release that energy before taking in any more. Glutton tenses, preparing to fire all of Peril's energy back at him. Suddenly, Brian springs into action with a knee to Glutton's chin that snaps his mouth closed just as he is about to release. Glutton's body radiates and swells outward like an overfilled balloon. Horror paints the man's face as he can do nothing to stop the inevitable. With a massive explosion, nothing remains of Glutton. Bastards, Malice whispers, shocked at the loss of another teammate. We need to go all out against them, Morgan says, panting and still damaged from Storm's attacks. Malice nods, triggering his GX parasite to metabolize increased energy in his blood. 2 large organic cannons form from his shoulders and scales materialize across his exposed flesh. Energy swirls around the cannons as they amass power. 85%, Wingman whispers, shakily raising an arm to loan his remaining strength to Maligan's attack. My turn. Morgan grins, her eyes becoming reptilian. Scales appear on the woman's cheeks and her teeth elongate in fangs. Full misfortune. Hex party. Morgan's ability allows her to increase the bad luck of an opponent. In her transformed state, she can increase the bad luck of all targets by a factor of 10. Storm takes a step to react, but somehow twists the ankle that was earlier broken. As he stumbles, he accidentally releases electrical energy into the backs of Flex and Brian. Die! Maligan screams, firing his cannons. The force of the blast causes his legs to sink into the street several inches. A black streak jets past the energy, diffusing it with a swipe of a hand. The energy explodes to both sides, vaporizing several buildings and the pavement below. Brian and the others look on in surprise as Jake Stewart stands before them. Who the fuck are you? Maligan shouts. Jake appears at the man's side, elbowing him in the face, so hard that his eyes turn white. Maligan falls, dropping out of his transformed state. Morgan rushes with her sword, but Jake sidesteps and grabs her wrist while kneeing her in the gut. Morgan slashes out horizontally, forcing Jake to hop backwards in evasion. The woman grinds her teeth together in anger and holds her stomach with one hand in pain. Blood drools from her lips. Damn you, Morgan growls. How do you pack so much of a punch? You don't look that strong. Jake says nothing, merely staring the fighter down with intensity. Morgan rushes and Jake sidesteps her attacks, finally catching her blade between his fingers, before striking her with an uppercut to the same spot he previously kneed. Morgan staggers back, vomiting blood. Jake pivots, catching the woman with a spinning heel kick to the side of her head that renders her unconscious. He took out 2 of our strongest fighters in seconds, Larson whispers in horror. He's mine, Inertia shouts, charging Jake. The teen catches the man with both hands, skidding back with equal force. What the hell? He wasn't repelled? Jake screams, falling back and kicking Inertia into the air with both feet. The man crashes back to the ground in a heap, inches from Larson. Jake materializes beside Larson, smashing the back of his hand against his face. He turns towards the only 2 remaining conscious GX fighters, Wingman and Teevil. Red and black energy still crackles around his body. Wingman lays his head back down on the ground and closes his eyes, hoping that he'll be left alone. As a supporter, Wingman is not much of a fighter on his own. Teevil instead stands his ground, cracking his neck in his hands. This one hasn't done anything the entire fight, Brian thinks. I wonder why he stayed out of it. The mighty Yamura, I presume, Teevil asks. We've heard many great stories about you. Destroying an entire city is pretty impressive. I don't think our team could do that with all of our powers combined. Jake says nothing, growling like an animal. Strong and silent, huh? I guess some of the stories about you were exaggerated. Jake rushes Teevil, but the GX fighter is able to leap back in evasion and dodge his attack. Teevil immediately initiates his parasite and spurs it into transformation, knowing that fighting in his base form will not be enough against this opponent. The man's skin darkens with black scales, and blood begins to run between the scales and pool on the ground. The blood rises up in dozens of wriggling tendrils before morphing into the forms of small, imp-like creatures. Teevil takes a deep breath to try and relax and grins. Let's see how well you deal with my blood imps. Jake throws a hand out, consuming the imps in a wave of black fire. Teevil blinks several times in disbelief. Oh, he whispers. Shit. Teevil hops backwards, summoning more blood imps. I wasn't ready, the GX fighter says. Let's see you try that again. With a single swipe of his hand, all of the creatures are reduced to cinders. Before Teevil can say another word, Jake backhands the fighter and sends him flailing into the distance, before slamming into the side of a building and dropping to the ground in a heap. Jake looks over at Brian and the others, still growling. "Didn't he used to be on our side?" Brian asks. "I'm not so sure about that," Storm replies. "I've heard nothing but horror stories about this guy and his bloodlust. I'm thinking we just had a mutual enemy last time." "Hey, buddy," Brian says, holding his hand out. "We're all good guys here. There's no need for us to fight. We hate Conco and his mutants as much as you do." Jake says nothing, blitzing Brian in an instant and striking him with a hard left that sends the team flying across the lot. "I think that pretty much clears it up. He did not come here to help us," Flex says. Brian sits up, rubbing his jaw. "Whether I wanted to or not, it looks like we're going to have to fight him." Peril cracks his knuckles, grinning. "You may have not wanted this, but I have been looking forward to it for a while now." Peril stares at Jake, ready to resume the battle that they last fought in Clavemont, what seems like a lifetime ago.